Imagine filling up your car at $5.70 a gallon while staring at a grocery bill that keeps climbing, and you're wondering how you're ever going to afford a home near $900,000. That is the painful reality for so many California families right now. If you're feeling that, please hit the like button, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and then share this with another California mom or dad who needs this real talk. And make sure you turn on notifications. Today on The Britt Mayer Show, we are thrilled to have back with us for the second time on the program, Assemblyman James Gallagher. He represents California's 3rd Assembly District up in Northern California, covering communities in Butte, Glen, Placer, Sutter. He is a former Republican leader, a strong voice for rural and family values in crazy Sacramento, and he is currently running for Congress. I am so excited for you guys to get to know him again. Make sure at the end that you check the show notes because I place a lot in there for everyone who wants all the good details. Make sure you listen all the way through the end because I do put him in the hot seat and you're going to love his answer. With no further ado, here is Assemblyman James Gallagher. Thank you so much for joining us again. We were just saying that it's been too long.
It has. It's great to be back on the show, Britt, and thank you for all that you do to enlighten folks and bring out good information to our movement.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a wild ride, but here we are, and you're here for the second time. A lot has changed. So we're going to dive right into something that I think really matters to so many California families. California families are paying a lot to live in California right now. It almost feels like a penalty to live here. So I was just pulling some of the stats, and I'm sure you have all the current data too, but gas has surged now to around, on average, $5.50 a gallon. Out here in San Diego, I mean, we're climbing up beyond that. And median home prices are projected around $905,000. That is so high. I can't even believe I'm saying that. It sounds obscene. Those are single-family homes, and that's just this year. And then families keep leaving the state in droves, and those are the families that can actually move out. So when a mom in our audience tells me that she is crying at her kitchen table because she just got her PG&E bill and it's 300 and above and it's climbing and she just can't afford a house, she's watching neighbors load U-Hauls and move out for Texas and Arizona, what do you say to that mom?
I say I totally feel your pain, and we need to do something about it. I mean, it's frustrating. I've been a big champion of, number one, we got to get on electricity rates. Let's slash them. We can. We have the ability to do that. I've introduced legislation to cut our rates by 30%. And a big part of that is if we just got rid of some of the stuff that's in our rates that has nothing to do with bringing power to you, like these different like public purpose programs and different subsidies and mandates that they put on power companies that raise our rates. I think we should. I honestly think we're at the point where we need to federalize the gas issue. I do think the president needs to come in and say, "Look, I'm going to slash these state taxes. This is a national emergency. It's impacting our military bases out here on the West Coast. They're losing jet fuel supplies. So I really think we're at that point where we need to come in and just take drastic action, because you're not going to get it from Gavin Newsom. You're not going to get it from the Democrats that run the state legislature. All you're going to get from them is lip service.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done nothing to lower our gas prices. In fact, everything they've passed, every single bill that they passed has done nothing but raise them. Last year at the end of session, they passed cap and trade. Now they're calling it cap and invest. It's cap and tax. That's what it is. It raises your gas prices. It's why Chevron is now saying we're going to leave the state. And if we leave, we're not coming back. So that'd be another refiner going out of this state. We've lost 18% of our refined gas on the West Coast now. Huge impact to us. All that is a function of California policy. And I don't see it getting better. And that's why I think we need drastic action by the president to cut gas prices. And then we need to cut our electricity rates, which again, we can do. And I have legislation I'm working on right now that I'm hopeful we can push through in the assembly this year.
That's the first time I've heard anyone in the inside talk about federalizing the gas prices. I think that's interesting. So Gavin Newsom would say, hey, it's just because of this Iranian conflict that we're seeing gas prices soar. But I actually saw a map come out, I think it was yesterday, which showed that California, they had it color coded, and California was obscenely higher than all the other states, and it kinda trickles out from there until you get to the East Coast, it goes much lower. But what would you say to Gavin about that?
No, I mean, he's making it up, man. I mean, he wants it to be about anything other than himself. He always points the finger somewhere else. And I think we all know it. I mean, we've all felt it already. We've been paying over $5 for gas for quite some time now. And yes, prices ticked up because of what's going on in the Middle East. It's ticked up nationwide, but still, we are paying the most in California because of the policies passed by Gavin Newsom and the supermajority Democrat politicians who are the ones who brought us cap and tax. They're the ones that caused two refineries to shut down in California because of the regulations and mandates. They're the ones that passed the gas tax, back in 2015, that raised our gas tax to the highest in the nation. We've been pushing, for the last several years now to suspend that gas tax. Let's at least just suspend it in these hard times to give people relief right.
Mhm.
Democrat
Yeah.
politicians, again, the politicians in Sacramento, they refuse to do it. Gavin Newsom refuses to do it. There's many things we could do that could lower people's prices, but they are just doubling down on these policies that jack up the cost of everything in the state. And then we talk about housing. Yeah, I mean, when I
Mhm.
bought my first house with my wife, I was just talking about this the other day. When I bought our first house in 2008, it was $279,000. And that was in Northern California, north of Sacramento. We have lower prices, but you can't find anywhere near that now,
No.
right?
No.
And um, people are trying to go out there and buy their first home, and you just said it, the median is like 900 grand. I mean,
It's
how can you
insane.
possibly do it? The kind of mortgage that you would have to pay, and then combine that with the highest cost of living, the highest cost of groceries and gas and electricity. It's becoming impossible to live here, and we need real, serious, and urgent relief to lower people's costs. It's the number one issue, and I agree with you. When I talk to people throughout this district, the number one issue around the dinner table is, how do I pay all the bills?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a real pain point. So, talking about that housing crisis that we are sitting under in California, and for those who don't live in California, it's real. I mean, it is a real table conversation out here in California. People just can't afford it anymore. And then the common answer I get is, "Well, just move to another state." A lot of families can't move, but they're trapped by the insane outrageous costs that continue to climb in California. That includes even insurance. Is It just keeps going up, and it's so, like, all the ways that they get you where you have to keep paying these climbing insurance rates, and you can't. I mean, our insurance out here, because we got refire zoned a few years ago, it doubled overnight. And I remember telling my husband, like, how do people even afford this if they've budgeted for a certain amount, but now you're locked into a home and you have to pay insurance? There's no way around it. It's just, I don't know how people are making it in California anymore, to be totally honest. It's a real issue for Californians out here, and something has to change. So on that front, do you see hope on the horizon? Is there anything that we can look at as there's hope coming, or is this just what we're gonna have to deal with out here?
The one hope on the horizon is there were some emergency regulations passed last year that have gone into effect and have been implemented that I think are helping to bring more insurers back into the marketplace. And that is the crux of the problem. Again, the people who've run this state, Gavin Newsom and the Democratic politicians who've run this state, they said, "Hey, we're going to hold insurance companies accountable." What they did is they ran insurance companies out of the state,
Yes.
and they regulated them so much that finally they said, "Look, we cannot make this work." And so many of them just stopped writing policies, and now you have no other choice in areas other than Fair Plan, which is a disaster, and it's essentially a government supported or industry supported, tax that goes and pays for the plan, but it doesn't cover what you need, and it's extremely expensive.
Extremely, extremely expensive. Let's shift into talking about parental rights out here in California. And I do want to just kind of set the framework on the questions that are most asked to me from the audience. So, obviously, cost of living being out of control in California, and then education and parental rights are a big topic that comes up a lot. So, just some data on that front. California's latest test scores from 2025 releases are completely heartbreaking and shocking. So we pay a ton, obviously, for the education system out here, but only somewhere around 45 to 48% of kids, and that's probably being generous, are proficient in English, just 38% proficient in math. We just had a big win from the US Supreme Court, which blocked California schools from secretly socially transitioning kids without telling parents. And that's still ongoing, but it did rule in our favor. And the crazy Ninth Circuit got it right on that one too. So we had a double win and I just reported on that. I'll drop the link below in the show notes. But meanwhile, you introduced, I believe it was AB 2535, which also deals with the school system. And that was to focus on the ultra processed garbage. I could use other words, but the food that we call school lunches, to get that out and to put real California grown food in instead. So obviously, with all of that in the background, moms across California are furious that schools have been what we feel abusing our what we expected out of the school system. Our kids are failing, they're not proficient, they're getting fed garbage, and then we've had schools that have been socially transitioning our kids against our desires and knowledge, and children are not a creature of the state. So as a dad and a lawmaker, where do you draw the hard line on parental rights so that us moms can feel much more comfortable knowing what is happening to our kids when they aren't under our wing?
Well, this is where we're actually starting to make some really good progress, and you and I, we've been in this fight for a while.
Long time.
uh, and it was crazy, a few years ago, we were having this fight in the legislature where we had to fight for just common sense, like, no, you don't get to like transition my kid at school. You
Hmm.
don't secrets from parents. And we had this whole fight in the legislature. We were finally vindicated on that, in the courts. And that was awesome, to see that come down. Something that was already, it was precedent. The Supreme Court precedent has been that parents have 100% control over their kids' welfare, their education, their health care. But California was ignoring it. We finally got a win there, in the courts, which was great. And then, yeah, I mean, on the school lunch program, I've long thought about this. Being a farmer, where here in California we grow some of the most wholesome, nutritious food in the world, right? And we have it throughout this great valley, this great Central Valley in California, and yet at school our kids are getting garbage. I mean, our
Hmm.
kids are getting ultra processed food. You're not seeing California grown products, peaches and prunes and apples, all these different products that we grow here in rice, all these different products that we could be getting directly into our classroom. So that's where, for me, I was like, look, we need to do something about this. I helped, pass legislation that bans ultra processed food in our school lunch program. That was a huge deal. And now I'm running legislation this year to really focus on the California grown and like encouraging all of our institutions, our schools, our higher education institutions of learning. Why aren't we using our especially in right now? And maybe a lot of people don't know this. California farmers are in a really terrible situation. They have some of the lowest commodity prices that we've ever seen. Their prices for the things they grow are at very low prices, and their costs have gone up exponentially. Well, hey, we have a huge consumer demand right here in California for healthy food that's grown right here. And I think that this could be a big part of that. It's a win-win. It's healthier food for our kids, and it's also helping our California farmers.
Yeah, well, it makes sense if we're growing them right here in our own backyard, then why aren't we just feeding into that consumer-driven model instead of, propping up the big conglomerates? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, everything's been, targeted towards this big, like, global export market,
Yeah.
instead of like, hey, what about like just our let's start with our local communities, right? Let's
Mhm.
start with our local communities, our state, and improving that infrastructure and networks for farmers to get their food directly to your plate.
Mhm.
Right, and I think that we do need to rethink that a bit. It's taking a change in policy, but you're also seeing that people are demanding it. I mean, and parents are demanding it because they want that, for their children. They want healthy food. They want to know that what they're giving their kids is something that's going to be good for them,
Mhm.
right? And doesn't have all kinds of additives and byproducts in it.
Yeah,
right?
that's very Maha, very American first. So going back
Yeah.
to the test scores, which obviously are a huge issue, they're horrible after billions of dollars being spent. What is a reform that every mom should be demanding right now when it comes to those test scores in our school system in California?
We have to get back to basics, and I think there's a couple of things, like, we gotta get all the woke stuff out, and we've been talking about that, like, let's just get back to the fundamentals. Every kid should be the focus should be on making sure they understand how to read, you know?
Hmm.
By age, by 3rd grade, they should be at reading proficiency and meeting those standards, and you keep track and they meet those, right? On math standards, same way, right? But we're not doing that, right? I mean, we continue to have our kids miss those targets because the focus is on all kinds of other curriculum that has nothing to do with our kid being successful. We also somehow have to like really breed incentives and performance. And I think one of the ways we can do that is through money follows a kid, or
Yes, huge.
if you will, where it's like, look, if I'm a parent and you're not getting the job done for my kid, they're not meeting metrics, I should be able to go to any school I want and that money follow the kid.
Hmm.
And if you create that kind of a marketplace, then I think that it's going to get the attention of schools to say, hey, we better make sure that we're getting the job done for these students. Otherwise, they're going to leave and they're going to go to other places. Charter schools, obviously, I think have been one of the bright lights in California. I mean,
Hmm.
that's been a lot of parents a choice and an option to go somewhere where they're, different types of curriculum, different focus. I talk to parents all the time who really, appreciate that they've had the opportunity to take their kid to a charter school. That's not always the option for people though,
Right.
right? And so look, I think we need to have choices, we need to have incentive and performance metrics, that ensure that we're meeting standards because we're not right now. I mean, we're throwing money. What we've been doing, again, I wish I was in power and I wish that we could like, just adopt these tomorrow. But the powers that be in Sacramento are people who just continue to throw more and more money at the status quo.
Hmm.
They're it's, our kids are failing, and your dollars, taxpayer dollars, are getting wasted.
And they just keep going up. One thing that I wanted to ask you, because it's a question that always comes up anytime we talk about school choice and education in California, is the medical freedom aspect of that. So,
Yeah,
obviously, you and I both know everything that went down. Was it a decade ago now? It's crazy. That really ages me because
yeah,
we've been fighting this for a long time. I feel like I've been
we're
asking
still
you.
young.
I know. Just keep saying that. Just keep saying that. But I feel like, I mean, this has been an ongoing conversation with you over the last decade plus is, are we ever going to get our medical freedom back as parents? Because right now we pay insane taxes into a school system that our kids, if they are not fully vaccinated, according now to the California CDC, then we can't send our kids into daycare, private school, on campus charter schools, public schools, colleges, anywhere in California. So you're forced into homeschooling or co op situations. Are we anywhere near seeing that actually change?
It's wrong. I mean, it's a huge injustice. It was an injustice when this passed. We now have Dr. Pan, by the way, is back. He's running for
I
Congress.
heard.
Kevin Kiley is running in that seat, so hopefully we can get our buddy Kevin to defeat
Yes.
him come November. That's going to be a big fight. No, I mean, it's wrong. I believe we should bring back the personal belief exemption. That's what we needed.
Hmm.
People should be able to make the decision, for their family on what they want to do. Again, parents control the healthcare decisions of their kids. And when you completely block kids from any kind of chance at education, from K all the way through college, right? That to me, that is a huge injustice. And like I said, even in the charter programs, this is
Hmm.
is I favor bringing back that personal belief exemption. Is that happening? I mean, not under the current legislature. There's been different attempts. I even heard us, like now, even the boosters that are required, like in 7th grade, which is just ridiculous. Like, you have kids they did get vaccinated. Now you got to force them to get the boosters as they go into 7th grade. Why do we need to do this? Like
No, it is a huge, it's a crime and it's an injustice. And I know that eventually it will all get worked out, but in the meantime, we're stuck paying insanely high taxes. I've said for a long time, look, if you want to discriminate against my family and say that we can't use your broke
get your
system,
money.
then I want my give me all the tax money back. I don't wanna be paying into a system that you're discriminating my kids against. It makes like, that to me is highway robbery. It's such fraud and discrimination. I know that there are currently 2, cases, I don't know if you're familiar with them, that are ongoing right now. I talked to, Christina Hildebrandt from A Voice for Choice Advocacy, and she's heading
Okay.
up, I believe, 2 of those cases that she said, "Come summertime, there may be some movement, with this issue, but until then, we just keep on paying these high taxes to a failing school system that our kids can't even go to." Just it doesn't make any sense. So backwards.
I like
Obviously.
the idea, like, hey, like, give us our money back, right? I mean,
Yes.
I think that could be another option, that we try and push, because again, yeah, you have completely stolen away that public opportunity,
Mhm.
from children, when you have these rules in place.
Yes, it makes a whole lot of sense, but California doesn't like to make a whole lot of sense. As a Christian mom right here in California, I refuse to be silent about the evil that is happening in our own backyard. Human trafficking, especially sex trafficking, is not just an overseas problem. It is right here every single day in every state, and it is exploding in our own communities. Right now, vulnerable women and children, our daughters, our neighbors' kids, are being exploited through the very devices in our home. Pimps and predators use social media, apps, and the internet to groom and trap them. An estimated 27 million people worldwide are enslaved, with millions in sex trafficking, and a huge portion right here in America. This $150 billion criminal industry preys on the innocent. That's why Operation Love Global is laser focused this year on prevention and rescue right here at home in the USA. They are running proven digital safety workshops to equip parents, teens, churches, and schools with real tools to spot dangers online and keep kids safe. They are partnering with trusted nonprofits to provide direct care for survivors. Operation Love Global needs you to stand with them to help end this evil. Donate today to fund these workshops, survivor outreaches, and partnerships. Your gift, monthly or one time, multiplies the impact, and it honestly saves lives. Go to operationloveglobal.org to donate. Any amount helps support this critical mission to see justice and healing fulfilled. We can't afford silence. Go to operationloveglobal.org for more information. Let's shift into talking about current safety aspect of California, crime and homelessness. And really the big question is, can families feel safe again in California? So right now, Governor Gavin Newsom is celebrating a 9% drop in unsheltered homelessness after all these years that he has been our governor. That is the biggest in 15 years after we have poured in billions and billions of dollars. But California still is the homeless capital. So we get that gold medal. And moms tell me frequently that they do not feel safe in California. Obviously, we had an open border. I reported on location at our open border in San Diego when they were bringing in droves of white buses. And I saw the military aged men coming off of those buses and just becoming ghost foreigners and being escorted into God knows where. So obviously, billions of dollars later, again, going back to how much we spend, and tent cities still everywhere. I want to ask you what is actually happening, because moms want to know, are our children the ones who are going to pay the price here in California, who have to step over needles on the way to school, or hearing about smash and grabs? And, you see the pictures out of San Francisco where it's the zombie apocalypse out there. So again, are we going to be able to see California made safe again, or is that a pipe dream?
This is another area where I see actually some really good progress and some bright lights on the horizon. The first one is Prop 36, that finally got the ability to like have accountability for these repeat criminals, these vagrants who are going into stores, stealing things, assaulting people on the streets. Prop 36 passed, and that was a total like grassroots voter
Hmm.
initiated effort. We beat back Gavin Newsom, we beat back the politicians, and we passed Prop 36 by 70% of the vote. So to me, that was a big first step, kind of going back against all this craziness. Gavin, yeah, I mean, Gavin continues to try and lie and bring up some kind of stat that shows he's making progress. But even if you believe that, yeah, you spent 25 billion more dollars on homelessness to only bring it down 9%. And we also know that before that, he already raised the amount of homelessness in the state exponentially, much more than 9%. So the fact that you brought it down just a little bit, And again, those numbers are very skewed. We see it on our
Mhm.
street every day. It has not gotten better. It's actually gotten worse. But I think we are seeing that some jurisdictions have sort of taken it on their own to like get out there and say, we're going to enforce. We're not going to let people just stay in our parks, stay in our public spaces. And I give credit to those places that have really gotten aggressive on that front. We had the Supreme Court case overturn Boise that allowed local. It used to be the law that local jurisdictions could not enforce like their sit lie ordinances. People sleeping on the streets or people sleeping in parks. They couldn't enforce that unless they could show they had shelter beds. That got overturned. And that's given a lot of local jurisdictions in California the ability to like take their matters into their own hands and with their policing and their enforcement be able to clean up. And so I think that's been a positive force. But longer term, we need new people in power. We got
Yep.
to race. Look, the top two people right now are Republicans.
Yes, I just saw there was a new poll just out like an hour ago, and we've still got 2 Republicans from pretty much all counts showing that they are in the lead out here for governor of California. Crazy.
Yeah, and one of the Democrats is and there has been somebody who's gone against the governor on crime and on homelessness, right? So
Mhm.
like, we're starting to see people like turn in a better direction, and both of our Republican candidates, I think, are really highlighting this in a great way. It's getting that out there, and wouldn't that be sweet justice after Prop 50 if we end up with the top two Republican in the governor's race? I think it's very possible. There's a lot that's going to go on. A lot of stuff is going to come out about Eric Swalwell, I think, in the next few weeks that is going to really hurt his campaign.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
it's starting to trickle out.
yeah. And so, like, I mean, obviously, having someone at the top level, an executive who's really going to like push the envelope on this will really help us. So I see that, as a bright spot as well. In addition to some of the reforms that have been passed recently in court cases that have come down that have given us more ability to deal with this issue.
Do you think that we could actually win for governor? Do you think that that could actually happen in California? It's been a while since we've had
Look,
that.
yes, it is still a long shot, man. We've been in these battles. I mean, we saw what happened with Prop 50, very disappointing.
Mhm.
Last governor's race, I was, out there campaigning hard for Brian Dowley, who is a good friend of mine and who was, would have made a great governor. And it seems like it breaks down about 60-40 right now. But people are starting to get frustrated with how things have been. They don't like the status quo. So that needle has started to move. If we can pass voter ID in November, another huge issue. Like if we can, it's on the ballot. We have an opportunity. It's polling great. We know that independents and even Democrats are with us on this issue. If we can get voter ID established, I think we can finally start to turn that pendulum. Does it happen in 26? I hope so. I think the best opportunity is if it's top two Republican. And I think there's at least an inside chance that could happen, or
Mhm.
well, an outside chance that that could happen. But look, we're making progress, and I think it won't be long, before we do have a Republican governor. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later.
I know I always hear when we talk about races in California, and I'd love for you to just chat on this with me for a second. It always comes back to the fraud, and you hear terms like rigged or it's all broken anyways. What's the point of voting? Your vote doesn't count. I mean, you and I have lived here for so long. We see what happens the second the polls close, the races are called. But then they keep counting for months and months and months, but nothing changes. So for people who are disenfranchised or have become really apathetic with the system because they're like, it's broken, we're never going to get out of it, what would you say? Because I get that a lot.
I'd say one, let's get voter ID passed. I think that will be a huge game changer for us because one, that will really like write the rules, if you will. If this passes, everyone will have to show an ID before they get any kind of ballot, right? And that includes a mail ballot. So all these mail ballots that are going out right now that I get a ton of complaints like, hey, this person moved and they're still getting a ballot. Why? Well, now you'll have to affirmatively show your ID before you get any kind of ballot. That's going to write the rules. And I think that's going to be very helpful to ensure we have integrity, in our elections. I've always thought that the thing that's really happening is similar to you saw this video, right? That was from, I believe it was from San Francisco, where this gal is giving people $5,
Mhm.
right? And then she's saying, hey, write in this name and sign it.
Yep.
Just sign it. Just sign it, right? I have long thought this is what's happening with mail ballots, is that they will go into, deeply urban areas, right? Organized groups, associated with Democrats. They'll go in and they'll like gather people's ballots and say, "Hey, just sign it. Just sign it. I don't need you to vote anything on it, but just sign it." And they gather up those ballots. And the only thing that the registrar is looking at is they're doing signature comparisons. Well, if you go through a neighborhood and you're giving people money and you're paying for their ballot, essentially, like we saw in real time on that video, you can just gather up a ton of ballots and then vote them and put them in the blue mailbox, and who knows who would ever,
Mhm.
right? So that's where I think has really been the biggest prospect for fraud, and that's where I think voter ID would be huge. And we've got to pass it. People need to turn out. This is like, to me, this November really could be one of the most significant elections because we have the chance to put voter ID in place here in California, and we have some great people running around the state that we can really start to move the ball in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if we have any hope, then November probably is the best hope we've had in a really long time out here in California. So I always just encourage people, it doesn't take that long. Just go vote, be informed, and show up. I mean, okay, so it's fraudulent. You still voted then. You still did your part. If you just sit at home, then you can't complain when the results come
And
in.
stop this finally once and for all, like by showing up in November for voter ID.
True story. Okay, let's move into the wildfires, energy, rural reality out in California, which you deal with a lot because you represent fire country and farm country. And obviously, we talked a little bit about the recent fires that caused the insurance rates to explode and the power bills keep on climbing. So, moms in your district and outside of your district, we live with, I live in a fire area too. So, I live with the reality of wildfire season, which is just around the corner again, and then our electric bills starting to skyrocket. So, what is your answer to families asking, how do we protect families from both the flames, but also the blackouts and the cost? And then to bring that back into the farms, the ag economy that feeds the entire state. Unconstitutional taxation has always met the same response. When power reached into pockets without consent, Americans gathered by candlelight, read the fine print, and chose refusal. Laws that were meant to justify theft were torn apart. Receipts were burned. Cargo was thrown into water while tyranny stood on the dock, demanding obedience that it no longer had. I am so excited about this new candle by Resistance Candle. Taxation is theft. You can light this candle in the spirit of that rejection and as a reminder that theft doesn't become moral because it wears a seal. I love the quote by Frederic Bastiat: "When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it." This little candle is our rejection of taxation that has become theft. Go grab this candle at resistancecandles.com. Taxation is theft. It has a really nice ring to it. And grab a few so you can give them as gifts. Resistancecandles.com and use code RootedWings.
The number one thing we can do is, we used to do this, especially with our timber industry and our foresters. We would go into these areas and we would like thin out the forest. We had a timber industry that was using that wood for economic activity, lumber that we all need. It provided jobs, but the bottom line is it kept these public lands like clear of dead and dying brush and trees that become a tinderbox ready to explode. And so, again, they shut that down, in the, 90s. Our timber industries went out of business. A lot of them did. And our public lands became this tinderbox, and it started to ignite all over the place. Right. And that's what we saw in 2017 and 2018, in 2021, with these major fires that just flared up across the state, not just in my district, but all across, even in
Mhm.
Southern California, and ultimately here recently in the Palisades and the Eaton fire.
Mhm.
It's all about properly managing our public lands. Now, if we did that, number one, we would make ourselves safer, but it would also bring down the risk that goes into insurance rates. If we were showing that we were making these places safer from a fire standpoint, it would actually lower our insurance rates and help us from that standpoint as well. And then, the last thing is our utilities need to be spending the money on modernizing our equipment instead of these other things that I was talking about earlier. We're spending money on all kinds of mandates, usually these green mandates, woke mandates that they've come up with in the legislature, instead of like, hey, how do we modernize our grid and make sure we're bringing it, that it's safe, it's not sparking wildfires, and it's bringing electricity to you. The other racket I think that's been going on is that utility companies, quite frankly, are saying, "Hey, we need to spend all of this money on wildfire mitigation." Now that sounds good, but they're going to the PUC and they're claiming all kinds of costs. They're undergrounding more lines than they probably really need to, and they're claiming all that cost. And guess what? They're passing it all off to you.
Mhm.
And there needs to be a really strong audit of those costs. That's another issue that I've been working on to lower rates is, let's who's doing the homework to make sure that's even what they need to do. And by the way, like why should the ratepayer be the one to pick that up 100%? Why should
Mhm.
they be the ones to pick that up? They're the ones that failed, right, to not keep up their infrastructure that have caused these fires. That should be something that belongs to the company and the shareholders,
Mhm.
and they should have some skin in the game to make sure that that our utility lines are safe instead of passing off that bloated cost 100% to the ratepayer. That's another big problem. And I think if we get on top of that, one, we can do the right things to make sure our utility lines and our electrical lines are safe, but also lower the cost to the consumer.
It just all seems so common sense, everything we've talked about. It's like it's all common sense that Sacramento just gridlocks. They just don't want to let California thrive. I don't understand it outside of it being absolutely insidious in nature. It just doesn't make sense because sitting here talking with you, I'm like, it all makes sense. There's nothing you could say
Right.
to convince me that any policy pushing against anything we just talked about is legitimate. Outside of it being they just really want to make us hurt. And moms are feeling it. And I think that's why we actually have a chance in November to see a turn because people are so fed up. I mean, I hear it all the time. People are
Yes.
so fed up. Even those, Democrats, we've got Democrats who are fed up with it finally, especially with the Palisades fire and what that did. But I think that we have hit a tipping point. So speaking into all of this, I know we only have a little bit of time left, but I wanted to end on what you are doing that we haven't chatted yet about. You're running for Congress. So this is a big change. And I'm excited for you. So congratulations. But I wanted to ask you just about your decision to run for Congress and what that could look like if you do. How would you use that to leverage everything we've talked about in our favor in a good way from the position of Congress?
Well, look, I'm gonna need those mamas out there, and so all your viewers that that watch this show, here's a great opportunity for us to, I think, really make a big difference. I'm running for Congress in one of these new seats that we're drawing, post Prop 50. They thought that the politicians thought they were gonna draw this to favor them. Mike McGuire, is my opponent. He's in the Senate. He was part of drawing these lines. He tried to draw this district for himself, and he thinks he's going to walk away with it. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's the people, that make the decisions on this. And this district it's a great part of California. It runs from Lassen County in the high Sierras all the way down to Santa Rosa,
Mm,
Mendocino, Ukiah. So like there's some great parts, of this district. And, I think it boils down to this is like, do we finally want to say we've had enough of the status quo? All these things we've been talking about. These people, this politician, Mr. McGuire, they're the ones that have been doing all of these things that have raised your costs, that have made you less safe, that have put more mandates and more wokeness into your education. And is that what you want? I mean, they're the ones that have stood by while PG&E just raises your rates over and over and over again and done nothing. They're the ones who say that they're doing something about insurance, but your rates just keep going up.
yeah.
Right? I mean, we finally have to say these guys are liars. They actually don't care about, our quality of life and our everyday. And then we want something new. And so that's what I'm offering people. And I've been going all around the district. In June, that's the first election. We have an opportunity that I can get elected outright if I get 50% plus one. So all the voters up in Northern California in the current Congressional District 1. If we get out the vote and get 50% plus one, I'm elected. I'm going back to DC to immediately start working for you on all these issues. But then we need to win the bigger race in November. And that's where you said it. I hear from people all the time that say, I'm a Democrat, but I love what you do because you stand up for what's right. You know, you're fighting righteous cause fights. And you notice in what I've said earlier, I keep talking about Democrat politicians. It's not Democrats, because there's many people who are registered Democrats who are also just tired of what's going on. They're
Yes.
tired of the status quo. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this really isn't partisan. It's about policies that actually work, that are actually looking out for your families and your needs and your costs. And if you want someone who's going to be a fighter for that, like I'm that guy, and I'm ready to go do the job. So I would certainly love to have people support in that effort, and we're going to be, barnstorming all over the North State to get it done.
So good. What district is this then for the listeners so they can jot this down? What district will you be running?
So this is Congressional District 1, and
That's
then
easy to remember. Number 1, we have James Gallagher for
num-
Congress.
number one in your hearts right there.
Well, we've been doing this for a long time. I feel like I can say James. I don't even have to say Assemblyman Gallagher. We've been doing this
Yeah.
for a long time. I have been a huge fan for a really long time. You're always such a straight shooter and break things down just into common sense. And you have been fighting for our kids and just for our independence, I think, as parents for such a long time, and for our farmers, just all the good things. You've been on the right side of the equation for so long that I do hope that we see you make it up to Congress. Last question for you. If you could sit down with Gavin Newsom for just a couple minutes, what would you say to him right now?
Man, that's a good question.
I know it's your elevator question that you weren't expecting.
I would say, Gavin, do you know what you've done?
Mm,
Do you really believe in what you've done? And I would kind of point out all the things of all the actual outcomes, from homelessness to the high taxes, the high costs, and say, I mean, is this really progress? Do you really believe in what you've done? And I don't think you could honestly answer that question, yes. And so I think that would be the thing I'd say to him. And like, why have you doubled down, on these kind of policies when folks like me and many others have told you this is really damaging, and the problem is Gavin's a politician, right? He is totally focused on the next race, the
mhm,
next office. He's obviously running for president, and he pays more attention to what the polls are saying every day and to try and cater to some new trend or, new demographic instead of just like doing what is right.
mhm.
Do what is right. Look at the real picture here and let's actually try and solve problems. He's not going to be that guy. He just never will. I've given up hope on that.
Yeah. You know
But there's
what's
other people.
his track record is so crystal clear when you see what he did in San Francisco first as mayor and how the shape he left San Francisco in. It always is so appalling to me that you can continue to climb a ladder by breaking the rungs beneath you. And that's what he has done. He just keeps breaking them and then he just climbs. He keeps climbing. So he did San Francisco and then California. It's like he has left California in hideous, hideous shape. And his goal is to break the rung of California and then to go on to the next step, which would be president of the United States, which to me that's terrifying to imagine California-ing the United States.
Yeah, as Kevin Kiley said, hey, he's a warning to the rest of the of the nation. He is
So
not,
well said.
he is not an example. He is a warning sign for the rest of the nation. And yeah, man, we can't. Why let him keep doing that? Right? You're
Hmm.
exactly. It's always been frustrating to me that the voters continue, at least in California, to give him a pass and and elevate him when there's clearly no results. Like if any one of us had those kind of results in our own business or
No,
our own life, we would not we would not
no, you'd
need to
be
be in
fired.
court.
You'd be
Yeah,
fired. It was
you know,
interesting. Eric Swalwell sat down for an interview, and I can't remember what network it was with, but it's a network that's been sitting down with all of them. It's Katie Porter's famous interview where she storms off,
right,
and
yeah,
it was that one. So Swalwell just sat down a few days ago, and he was asked, and all the other candidates have been asked, "Do you agree with everything carte blanche that Gavin Newsom has done in California?" He said yes.
yeah,
Yes. I'm like, what idiot says yes? Like, to me, that is such a losing tactic. But going back to what you're saying about
yeah.
Democrat politicians, it's like they won't get it. They just want to be the lapdog of whoever is in power. And that is their kryptonite. And I hope it's what brings them all down. And that's why we need more like you out there fighting the good fight in the mix.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Swalwell is Gavin 2.0.
Oh, yeah.
He is Gavin 2.0. I mean, dare I say it, maybe even worse.
Hmm.
You cannot allow that guy to get elevated. We need real leadership. You got Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton running great campaigns out there. Let's help get them across, and bring back some real leadership in California.
Okay, so remind the audience when they will see your name on the ballot for Congress for District 1, and then how they can follow you, see what you're doing, and support your efforts in this run.
So go to my website, electjamesgallagher.com. Very easy.
Very easy to remember.
There's plenty of ways to sign up, help support me. And then also you can follow me on X. It's J_Gallagher for California, number 4, California. Follow me there. And look, we're going to be, like I said, going all over the district. If there's some way that you would like to help, we'd love to have you as part of our team.
This has been a great conversation. I always enjoy chatting with you. You're wonderful, and I appreciate you giving us this time in your very busy schedule. So thank you, Assemblyman James Gallagher. And for those listening, please check out the show notes because I have loaded them with a lot of what we just talked about, including his direct links. And then if this conversation fires you up and you feel like there's information in this that other Californians need to hear, which I think they all do, then please like, subscribe, and then share this episode with other mom friends or other friends throughout California who needs to hear what's going on in California, the reality of what's going on in California, and that there is still hope. So, Assemblyman Gallagher, thank you again. God bless you and your work. And obviously, as I always tell you, we're praying for you in this fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Britt. God bless you.